Good afternoon. My name is Adam Kiciński, and I'll be your host during today's conference. We are meeting to discuss the first half of 2023 at CD PROJEKT Group. I'll run the presentation together with Piotr Nielubowicz. Michał Nowakowski will join us for the Q&A session. Before discussing earnings, let's quickly sum up key events that took place in recent months. At the beginning of June, media outlets from all over the world had their first hands-on experience with Phantom Liberty. We gave our visitors the opportunity to play the expansion on all platforms, that is PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 5. More than 120 media representatives have since published their first impressions. We are very happy with those early reactions. Not long after that, at several Xbox FanFest events, we invited gamers to try out the expansion as well. Their opinions were closely aligned with the positive feedback from media. Both groups appreciated the huge amount of work that we had gone into the expansion and are looking forward to its release. The release date was announced at the Xbox Games Showcase event. Phantom Liberty will launch on 26th of September 2023. At the same event, Keanu Reeves announced a new trailer for the expansion. This trailer has been viewed by nearly 13 million people on our social media channels. This confirms Phantom Liberty's position as one of the most anticipated releases of this year. These announcements went together with the launch of pre-order campaign. After 2 months, we are very happy with how it's going. But of course, most pre-orders come in during the final pre-release days. By the way, this is also a great opportunity to highlight that the base game reached an important milestone in July. Cyberpunk has passed the very positive score threshold on Steam. From over 550,000 reviews posted since the release, 80% of players have rated the game positively. What's more, the recent average review score stands at almost 90%. This is a significant achievement that validates the hard work we have put into Cyberpunk over the last 3 years. Let's go back to the summary of the Phantom Liberty marketing campaign. We have also announced the Phantom Liberty Tour, a series of 8 community events taking place around the world in August and September. Participants can play the expansion, attend contests, and meet the development team. On top of that, last week at the opening of Gamescom, we showcased new ways to play, a video announcing new content coming in the expansion, as well as in Update 2.0, the biggest patch for the base game yet. We have prepared a number of new and overhauled features to help experience the game in the best possible way. Phantom Liberty has again generated great interest in our IP. We believe it's another positive signal showing anticipation for our upcoming release. Before moving on to our developers' involvement in ongoing projects, let me quickly wrap up the recent organizational changes at the studio. As we announced in July, by the end of January 2024, we'll be parting ways with about 9% of our team. This decision is closely related to the ongoing internal Red 2.0 transformation. We need to adopt the scale and structure of the team to our current operational needs and development plans. Coming back to the current allocation of developers, at the end of July, the Phantom Liberty team working on the pre-release phase consisted of 300 people. That's fewer than at the end of 2022, but still it remains our biggest team. On the other hand, the Polaris team has grown to almost 260 developers by the end of July. Last but not least, I would like to make some comments regarding 2 other teams. As you can see, the red part of the chart is smaller. This is a result of changes in CD PROJEKT that we announced in May. Concerning the green part, The Gwent team will gradually decrease in size until the end of this year. This is related to the Gwentfinity project, which entrusts the future of Gwent to the gaming community. Now, let's move on to financials. Piotr, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Adam. Let's start with our consolidated profit and loss account on slide 10. Unlike last year, when we launched Cyberpunk Next Gen Edition in Q1, the first half of 2023 saw no comparable sales events. This year, our focus has been on preparing for the Phantom Liberty expansion launch, as mentioned by Adam a moment ago. While we've been working on this new release, our existing Red products generated 244 million zloty in revenue. Together with 85 million zloty from GOG, this resulted in 325 million zloty in consolidated sales revenues. That's 86% of last year's figure. In contrast to the group sales, our cost of sales increased slightly, primarily from increased depreciation due to the completion and release of The Witcher 3 Next Gen Edition in Q4 last year. Moving on to operating costs, our selling expenses decreased by 5 million zloty to 85 million. This was mainly driven by a decrease in Cyberpunk servicing costs. At the same time, the preparation and execution of the Phantom Liberty release campaign resulted in the Cyberpunk IP-related publishing expenses reaching nearly 30 million zlotys, which accounted for a substantial part of our selling expenses. As regards administrative expenses, their increase is related mainly to the introduction of our new incentive programs in Q2, which replaced program introduced in 2020. Some of the new entitlements directly replaced the old ones, which produced increased costs on the new grant date. All in all, during the first half of 2023, non-cash expenses related to our incentive programs exceeded 10 million zloty. Moving further to our operating income and expenses, the positive balance of 25 million zloty comes mostly from the balance of impairment adjustments related to the Sirius project in the amount of nearly 19 million zloty, as discussed during the meeting dedicated to Q1 results. The second positive driver for the operating income, which did not exist before, was a nearly 8 million zloty effect on applying the innovative employee tax relief. This regulation allows us to use the R&D tax relief budget originally intended to lower our corporate income tax to offset a portion of the personal income tax, which we are obliged to remit to tax authorities. Introduction of this mechanism makes it easier for us to benefit from the R&D relief and our status as an R&D center. Another supportive driver is visible in the financial operations category. The reported surplus of nearly 22 million zloty came mostly from interest on bank deposits and T-bonds. Our income tax for the period consisted of three parts: current income tax paid locally, withholding tax paid abroad, and changes in deferred tax. As regards the calculation of deferred taxation, it was increased by nearly 8 million zloty as a result of utilizing the R&D tax relief budget on innovative employee relief, as mentioned a moment ago. All in all, our net profit for the first half of 2023 reached 91 million zloty. Let's now move on to the next slide, number 11, our consolidated balance sheet. Over the first half of 2023, our balance of expenditures on development projects driven by Cyberpunk, Phantom Liberty, Polaris, and Sirius projects increased by 123 million zloty. This figure represents the balance of new expenditures on development projects for the period, 148 million zloty, plus previously mentioned nearly 19 million zloty impairment adjustment related to Project Sirius, and less the amount we've recognized as costs for the period, 43 million zloty. At the same time, among current assets, our trade receivables decreased by nearly 82 million zloty, which is typical after the preceding juicy Q4 period. And last but not least, the total value of cash deposits and treasury bonds included in the three asset items marked with an asterisk is summed up under the table and totals 931 million zloty as of the end of June 2023. I will walk you through our main cash flow drivers in a moment. Let's move on to the second part of the balance sheet, slide 12. Our equity stayed flat as the 2022 dividend paid in June this year was offset mainly by the profits of the current reporting period. Our liabilities, mostly trade liabilities, decreased since the end of 2022. The mechanism here is similar to what we experienced with trade receivables. During the first half of 2023, we also observed a significant decrease in provisions. This was mainly driven by the payout of 2022 bonuses in 2023 and change in our remuneration strategy. The change implemented in 2023 shifted most of the profit-dependent team bonuses to base salaries and new incentive programs instituted this year. As a result, we set aside significantly lower provisions for 2023 result-related bonuses. Now, please move on to the next slide, number 13. CD PROJEKT's expenditures on research, development, and service of released games presented here quarterly since 2021. As you can see, the development work has been in full swing during the past 3 quarters. Although our main focus right now is on the upcoming release of Phantom Liberty, other projects we have in development are also progressing with each passing quarter. And now, our simplified cash flow on slide 14. Cash-wise, the 91 million zloty in net book profit for the period was supported by nearly 50 million zloty in depreciation and amortization for the period. At the same time, when talking about cash expenses, the non-cash serious impairment allowance adjustment in the amount of 19 million zloty needs to be deducted. The already mentioned decrease in our receivables was similar in size to the combined decrease in liabilities and provisions, all of which are represented by the next 2 bars. During H1, we also financed nearly 163 million zloty in expenditures on development projects, the core of our business. And to top it off, we shared 100 million zloty with our shareholders in the form of a dividend. Altogether, our financial reserves kept in cash, bank deposits, and T-bonds decreased by 160 million zloty over the first half of 2023. That's all as far as H1 2023 results are concerned. I'm looking forward to our Q3 earnings call when I will walk you through the results of the Phantom Liberty launch quarter. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Piotr. We are now 27 days away from the launch of Phantom Liberty. As I've already mentioned, we are entering the most intense phase of the marketing and PR campaign. On top of that, in the next weeks, we'll be sending review copies to journalists around the world, enabling them to publish their impressions and reviews before their release. We are very excited, and we eagerly await the moment gamers can finally experience the game. That's all from us. Now we'll proceed with the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. If you'd like to withdraw your question for any reason, please press star 2. You will be advised when to ask your question. And we have a question coming through. Our first question comes from Nick Dempsey of Barclays. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, guys. I've got 2 questions. The first one, when I'm looking at slide 13 and looking at the development expenditure new products line for Q2, that looks almost identical to Q1. When I'm looking at slide 14 and I look at expenditure on development projects, I've got 163 versus, I think it was 71 at Q1, so there's more of a over 90 million in Q2. Can you just explain to me what the gap is between those 2 things? Because that's going to be helpful for me trying to model that for the full year. And the second question, when we're thinking about attempting to model Phantom Liberty unit sales by thinking about an attach rate versus Cyberpunk unit sales, one consideration is that Phantom Liberty is not available on PS4 and Xbox One. Can you give us any indication out of the unit sales that you achieved of somewhere just over 20 million, roughly what kind of proportion might have been purchased on PS4 and Xbox One? Thank you.
Hello, Piotr Nirbowicz here. I'll take the first question. So the difference between the two slides is based on the fact that the slide number 14 presents our cash flows, so the money actually outgoing from the company on development of our games, while the previous slide, number 13, presents the book expenses we've booked during the period. The major difference between the two in respect of the first half of this year is that within this period, we've paid out bonuses for 2022, which was one-time cash operation visible in the cash flow slide. And at the same time, cost-wise, it was applied on the previous quarters of 2022, therefore was not visible in the first half of 23. And at the same time, as you may have heard, starting this year, we've implemented new according to the philosophy of remunerating people. We've shifted some, or most of the bonuses to base salaries and the incentive programs implemented this year. Therefore, this year, book-wise, we have much less reserves for bonuses, profit-related bonuses, than we used to have in previous years.
Okay, so just to understand, if I'm trying to continue that going forward, is the kind of just under 75 million or something closer to 90 million a sensible number? Does the 90 million include some kind of one-offs related to bonuses that I shouldn't be rolling forwards?
Yes and no. Bonuses are kind of one-off paid, one-off paid the following year for the results of the previous year. However, as I said, we've shifted the bonuses to base salaries, and month-to-month costs will be proportionally higher, and they will not be booked one time or quarterly. They will be booked month by month.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
In some average way of transforming, obviously, because each year is different.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Matthew Walker of Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Actually, there was a second question which we haven't answered yet. Hello?
Hi, Matthew. Matthew Walker from Credit Suisse. Are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, please go ahead.
Shall I go ahead? Okay. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon. Firstly, when you talked about pre-orders, you said most pre-orders, I think, will come in the final period before the launch. I was just trying to think about what are you expecting for the split in units between Q3 and Q4, given that you're launching, quite late in the third quarter. And then, if you remember back when you launched the original Cyberpunk, some issues around console. Obviously, as Nick said, you're not sort of doing this on old consoles, but are you happy that you've got the balance right between the coding working really well on both PC and next-gen consoles? And then final question is, what impact do you think the Phantom Liberty launch is going to have on the impact of the base game? Because obviously, I guess you're going to have some bundles, with the base game. Thanks.
Okay, I'm probably going to take most of these questions. However, first, I actually wanted to go back because I think Nick asked one more question which we haven't addressed, and we went immediately to these questions. So please allow me, because there was a comment. Sorry, not a comment. There was a question about the pre-orders we would have expected had we launched for the Xbox One and PS4, so the previous generation of the consoles. So we never obviously modeled anything for the past consoles because, as you may recall, from the moment we have announced the expansion, we were targeting the next gen. So we don't really have any answer to that. And also, I'd like to add, we're not really guiding on attach rates or sales ahead of launch. We never did that. We're not going to do it here either. But one thing which it brings an interesting case. I mean, there is no such thing as a single standard for platforms or generations or PC versus consoles of attach rates. So there is nothing that we can say with 100% certainty that we've lost X, Y, Z because we were not, percentage-wise. It just doesn't work like this. So now jumping to the questions which were asked just a second ago. Sorry, I need to remind myself looking at them. The pre-orders, what are we expecting splitting units between Q3 and Q4, given that we're launching quite late in the quarter. So the expansion launch is sort of similar to the launch of a game, to be honest, and typically the moment of the launch and the last weeks leading to that launch, the last weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week of pre-orders are like the most significant when it comes to the numbers. So obviously Q4 has Christmas and lots of reasons for people to purchase gifts and whatnot. So I would say that Q3 is going to be significant in terms of number of units, just because it is a launch period, and I would not, however, want to go deep and suggest what is going to be exact split of units. But my bet would be Q3 is going to be significant for sure. Now the next question: back when you launched CP, there were some issues around consoles. We're not launching on the old consoles. Are we happy that we got the balance right for the code working on the next gen PC? I'm not sure I follow exactly the question here, but if you're asking about the performance of the next gens, we have been actually showing the game publicly, on the next gen consoles, to the public during the Phantom Liberty tour. And we just came back from Gamescom in Germany, where the game was shown both, on PC, but also on the Xbox consoles. And we had very positive feedback from both gamers and media. And, let's wait for the launch and talk then. But, what we've seen so far, we're satisfied, we're happy. Now, the impact of the P&L launch have on the base game. Obviously, we'll have bundles. We're not, commenting or making statements about bundles or anything. The full focus is on the Phantom Liberty launch, which is just around the corner, and what impact it will have. I mean, typically the launch of an expansion, of a big expansion, drives the numbers of the base game as well. So yes, there will be an impact for sure. We've seen that in The Witcher 3. We're already seeing that to some extent in the pre-orders, which, if you're tracking some of the sales spots on Steam, which are publicly available a quicker way, you can see that yourself as well, without obviously specific numbers, but those we're not providing here. So been talking long, but I think I'm done. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Alexei Filippov of JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
Yes, hello, good evening. My first question is that there is a step up in resources allocated to the Witcher IP in this quarter. Is it mostly Project Polaris, as it seems, and you are scaling down the project series? So what's happening there, please? And shall we assume that Project Series is now not on the table? That's my first question. Another question is on the transition to new engine. What is the update there? What is the strategy with developers that are now working on old engine that is the biggest team of Phantom Liberty? And one small final question is, could you comment on the fact that the principal place of the business is relocated to Boston, according to your management comments report? Thank you very much.
Hi, Adam Kinski. I'll take probably all three. So there are more and more resources on Polaris. As you can see on the site, it's 250-ish now, and it will keep continuing. I mean, we'll move more and more people towards Polaris. Sirius is smaller, actually. Sirius is smaller than in the previous Q1 presentation, as we changed some fundamentals in terms of approaching this project, as announced before. So this is about the Witcher resources allocated to the Witcher IP. Transition to new engine. We are transitioning. I mean, we are happy that we made this decision. Of course, still in development. We are finishing the last big project on Red Engine, Phantom Liberty. Most of developers is already familiar with Unreal, and as I said, we are happy that we are transitioning. Of course, still there are things to be done, but in this regard, as for now, we think it was great decision that we are shifting to Epic's technology. And the third one, Piotr, you want to take the third one? Okay, so the floor is yours.
Right. So yes, the principal place of business was relocated to Boston, but only for our Los Angeles company that so far was responsible for our North American marketing activities. We decided to use the same shell, the same company, the same legal entity, also to kick off, to initiate the development studio that is to be located in Boston. So the principal place of the project was and stays in Warsaw. There was no change. However, one of our daughter companies was relocated from Los Angeles to Boston.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Ali Naqvi of HSBC. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking the question. If I could just refer to on slide 8, the light blue portion, which is your development team's working on the Cyberpunk expansion. When the game gets released, are they going to move on to Polaris, or what is the sort of strategy there in terms of staff members, or is this another opportunity to look at your development team and see if it's appropriate for the projects you have going on and that are live? And then could you just remind us what your policy is on updating us in terms of copies sold? Is it every iteration of 5 or 10 million? And when we might expect a sort of an update on how Cyberpunk has sort of fared? And final question, given the release of Phantom Liberty and the new 2.0 expansion, and this will hopefully address a lot of the issues that were solved, or issues that came out of the original release, how much does this go in terms of returning the lifetime value of the Cyberpunk franchise?
Thank you for the questions. I'll take the first one, Adam Kiciński. So after releasing Phantom Liberty, we'll transfer a big part of the team to Polaris, obviously. Some remaining members will then focus on supporting other ongoing projects like Orion or Hadar. But bear in mind that we'll also be supporting Phantom Liberty after launch for some time. That's obvious, and it's across the company, but including Phantom Liberty. As I said in my presentation, we are at the same time parting ways with some team members. It's a gradual process which will end in Q1 next year. Michał, you can take the second, right?
Yes, I can take the second. I'll try to take the third one as well, I think. So on the policies and updating us on copies, so we don't have any official policy, but we're trying to make them notable milestones, basically. So the last one we have announced is was 20 million copies. I think it was September or fall autumn last year. 20 million copies of CP, and again, we're not. I don't want to create here on the call a policy which is gonna, which is then something we're gonna have to religiously follow or something. But when there's gonna be a notable milestone crossed, we're definitely gonna update you. Now, as for the third question, how does the 2.0 go in terms of retaining lifetime value of Cyberpunk franchise? So the whole idea of 2.0 comes from us listening and analyzing what the players wanted, and we're big believers in that if you listen and have proper conversations with your fan base, that can only end up in good things happening to the franchise, also in a commercial way. So I guess it's my way of saying that we do believe it does definitely add up to returning lifetime value to the Cyberpunk franchise, but it is. I don't think I'd to quantify it in any way. I think it's very intangible, but we are deeply convinced that it's something that is going to add up to the life cycle of the franchise in a long time, and is going to benefit both the players and us. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. As we don't have any further questions on the line, now we will move to questions from chat. Please go ahead. I would like to turn the call over to the host to take questions from chat, please.
Yeah, I'll read them, and then I'll read the first, and then we'll answer. Piotr Poniatowski, mBank, is asking, what part of deferred income is connected in Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty pre-orders? Piotr, that's for you.
Yes, hello. So the current part of the product red segment's deferred income was reported in the amount of approximately 18.5 million zlotys as of the end of June. And it consists of around 2 million zlotys of subsidies and 16.5 million zlotys of sales relating to future periods. Around 3/4 of the latter amount is attributable to pre-orders of Phantom Liberty just for the last 19 days of June, so from initiation of the pre-order campaign till the end of the reporting period. What needs to be taken also into consideration is that this amount reflects only the advances on royalties we got for PC pre-orders, since none of the console platforms is advancing royalties for console pre-order sales. So the amount we can receive and book therefore is attributable only to our PC Phantom Liberty pre-orders.
The second question from Kacper Kopron, Trigon. Can you comment on quality assurance process in Phantom Liberty? Have you completed it already? Can you comment whether the Q&A is carried out internally or externally? It's not completed as we are still in the final phases. It's almost completed, of course. We are releasing Phantom Liberty digital only, so we are not producing any physical discs for it. So the final touches are still there, and it's carried out both internally and externally. The next one, Piotr Poniatowski, mBank. How far are you with Hadar right now? Have you already created a framework for the universe? Michał, we can talk that much, but you can take it, right?
Well, actually, you sort of answered, because as much as we would love to, it's not the right time for us to, go deeper into Hadar. So the work is progressing. The small team that is creating this framework, as you called it, as you put it, of the universe is working on it, but we don't have any comment in terms of how far, how deep, and how much more time they need. That's not something we're commenting here and now.
The next question from Konrad Krasuski, Bloomberg. What number of Phantom Liberty sales may convince you to work on another paid expansion? And
what low number may mean you may drop such idea as not worthy to pursue. Michał can take it. Yeah.
I mean, I can take it. So it's the decision has been actually made already, as we have announced a long time ago. We're not going to make second or third expansion. This is the only expansion of the game. It has nothing to do with the numbers, how satisfied or not we are with sales or anything of the kind. It's technological decision, to be honest. This is the last time we're working on the Red engine for the time being, at least, and in the foreseeable future, as we know, we are working on the Unreal engine from Epic, and this was one of the key reasons why we decided to. This is the only one.
Thank you, Michał. And there's another question from Konrad Krasuski. Have you recently made any changes to work from home rules following layoffs? Do you see that market is still driven by employees, not employers? So it's totally not connected with layoffs. Layoffs are the result of planning the future productions, and they are not connected with anything else. So not with work from home rules whatsoever. And about the market, well, in our case, market is not as other markets, I would say generally, because we are fighting for top talent, and we are it's always very competitive, but at the same time, we believe that great projects and great working conditions we can provide are attractive enough to attract top talent. But I wouldn't say whether the market is driven by employees or employers in our case. Thank you. All right. As we have no more questions, I'd like to thank you again for joining us today. If you have any follow-up questions, do not hesitate to contact our IR team directly by mail. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.
Thank you. That concludes today's conference. You may now disconnect.